Forces are once again unleashing brutal assaults on Ukrainian cities. The latest happening this morning in Mykolaiv.
Rescue teams in the southern Ukrainian city are searching for survivors after being hit by 10 strikes. Ukrainian officials say they were aimed at 2 universities and infrastructure facilities. This comes as Ukrainian officials accuse Russia of intentionally attacking civilians in Thursday's brutal attack in central Ukraine.
At least 23 people were killed when a missile hit near a residential building in Vinnytsia. An office building, and a medical center were also hit. Russia claims it was targeting a nearby building used by the Ukrainian military.
CBS News foreign correspondent Holly Williams joins us now for more from Vinnytsia, Ukraine. Holly, great to see you. So you spent a lot of time there in that city. Tell us about this attack. Has it shattered any sense of security for the residents there?
Yeah, Vinnytsia has been mainly peaceful since the Russian invasion began. And there's always been a sort of sense of security here. As you've said, we've spent a lot of time here since the war began. It's around 200 miles from the nearest front line, to give you a sense of the geography. And a lot of evacuees, a lot of people who've come from towns and villages that are much closer to the front line have come here because they have that sense of security. We were down at the site of the explosions both earlier today and yesterday. Ukraine alleges that it was cruise missiles fired by Russia. People down there look shocked, almost shell-shocked in some cases. It's clearly very emotional. We saw a lot of people arriving at the scene with flowers, tributes to victims who were killed. Family, friends of a 3-year-old girl say that she was killed in the attack, and we saw a pile of flowers and teddy bears at the spot where police say that she was killed. So this has been very jarring for the city of Vinnytsia, but I think it reflects the reality that at this point there are very few places here in Ukraine that are truly safe.
And Holly, you spoke with Ukraine's defense minister. What did he tell you that Ukraine needs most from the U.S. and its allies at this point in the war?
Well, it's a pretty wide-ranging interview, but touching on weapons, I think there are a couple of key points. First of all, we talked about modern air defense systems. Now, this is something that Ukraine has been asking for from the US and American allies for months now. The US has promised Ukraine a system called NASAM, but my understanding is that promise is quite complicated and it will take a long time to deliver that. Now, we asked the defense minister if Ukraine had had modern air defense systems, could the bloodshed, for instance, in this city of Vinnytsia, have been prevented. He didn't want to be drawn on that. He just said that they need them to protect their country. The other weapons that we talked about are HIMARS. Now, they are rocket launchers. They've been supplied by the US, 8 of those systems already, and 4 more have been promised. The Ukrainians clearly would like as many as they can get their hands on. They have a much longer range than any other weapon in the Ukrainian arsenal. And the defense minister said quite simply that they have been a game changer. And that chimes in with video that we've seen posted online in recent days and weeks that purports to show those HIMARS being used, hitting critical Russian military infrastructure here in Ukraine, and in particular, apparently taking out storage facilities of both ammunition and weapons. So we know that the US has promised around $7 billion worth of military assistance to Ukraine since this invasion began, and that gives you a small sense of how some of it has been spent.
And Holly, the UN, as we understand, is helping mediate talks with Russian and Ukrainian officials in Istanbul over grain exports. We know that that's really the only thing on the table. But has any headway been made on that?
It's quite a complicated issue. I mean, this invasion has brought bloodshed in Ukraine, but we have to remember that it's also contributed to a global food crisis that's affecting millions of people, pushing up the price of food and grain and exposing people to famine in some of the poorest parts of the world, notably Africa. And my colleague Deborah Patter has done some wonderful reporting from Africa looking at this issue. Ukraine is one of the biggest exporters of wheat and corn in the world, or at least it was before the invasion. It's often referred to as the breadbasket of Europe. And Russia has blockaded its Black Sea ports, leaving more than 20 million tonnes of grain stuck in silos there, and potentially leaving nowhere to store the next harvest. Now, Moscow blames Ukraine, saying that it's mined the coastline. But Ukraine says, we need to defend ourselves from attacks from the sea. This past week, there were talks, as you say, brokered by the UN and Turkey, aimed at doing something about this crisis and releasing that grain to the world. Russia now says that a final document will be ready soon. So it looks like progress. But let's see what this means in concrete terms and whether that grain actually gets to the people who need it the most.
It's causing a global crisis, as you say. Holly Williams of Vinnytsia, Ukraine, thank you so much.